to wear a mask when I bake brownies for my husband, and I want to talk to you about it. So, hi, if you're new here, my name is Taylor. I am a celiac specialized registered dietitian, and I've also been living with celiac for the past 10 years. And I have to wear a mask when I bake my husband's brownies because I have celiac disease, and this helps protect myself in a number of ways. Now, with celiac disease, I know everyone knows we have to avoid gluten and cross contact. What I'm most concerned about here is Airborne flour. When cooking in general, I want to be cautious of anything that could make gluten aerosolized or airborne. Now, cross contact with gluten, specifically being exposed to airborne flour, is a concern for people with celiac disease, but most people get it wrong. But that's not what I'm here to debate today. Ultimately, I believe every celiac should do what makes them feel most comfortable. Today, I'm just going to explain to you what I do in my shared household from the perspective of a fellow celiac who's been living with celiac for 10 plus years, who has lived in a dedicated gluten-free household, a household with 5 other roommates who consumed gluten, and then the household I live in now with my husband who consumes gluten, as well as from the perspective of a celiac specialized registered dietitian. So I wear a mask for 2 reasons. Number one is when I go to bake anything with gluten, there is always a risk that when you put the flour in the bowl or when you're mixing it, that flour is going to go up in the air, and you could then breathe that in, inhale that, and get that in your mouth, and then potentially be exposed to gluten there. And then I also wear a mask because even though I've had celiac for 10 plus years, it is so hard to fight the urge to try to lick one of my fingers if I get batter or anything like that on me. I am on high alert, and I do kind of have like a, I'm touching gluten, I'm dealing with gluten kind of feeling, but there's just like a subconscious part of me that sometimes takes over where I'm like, oh, suddenly I've made brownies and I don't remember anything. And I want to make sure that part of me isn't like accidentally slipping, a little dough or batter into my mouth when I'm baking. And I would say that's probably the ADHD hyper-focus side of me, but that's a completely different conversation. So that is why I wear a mask when I bake for my husband. There is a lot to consider when it comes to setting up a shared gluten-free and gluten-filled home when you have celiac disease. It's just one small point in my life where I find myself having to take precautions to avoid gluten in my shared home. Now, I do want to pause the video here and let you know that if you have celiac disease and your doctor told you to just go gluten-free or look for gluten-free on a food label, and you live in the United States and no one's taught you about where the risks actually lie on the food label, what the different things mean, and how to actually determine if something is really truly safe for you in the United States, I have a completely free label reading class. I cover exactly what I teach all of my one-on-one clients when it comes to looking for gluten-free food in that class. I'll teach you how to quickly identify if a food item is gluten-free in 4 simple steps in that class. So if you want to watch it, you can literally watch it right now. The link is in the description box. Finish this video first, of course. A lot of people would ask me, why don't you just make your husband go gluten-free? And when I met him 10 years ago, he made it clear he was not going to go gluten-free for me. And I accepted that, and I haven't asked him to, and we've been able to make it work because I'm very well versed in cross contact. I know how to set up my home to reduce mistakes. And he also now is well versed in it, and he knows what he needs to do in order to keep me safe. And we're both on the same page when it comes to that. But I do understand for a lot of people, it might be totally easier for them to just make the whole household go gluten-free. And ultimately, I think you have to make the best decision for yourself. You have to do what is best for you. And if that means everyone goes gluten-free, Incredible. I love that for you. I've lived in a dedicated gluten-free house. It is amazing. And if you do need to live in a shared household, this is just proof that it is possible and there are ways to do it without losing your everlasting mind. Now, some people will also say, like, why are you baking gluten for him? You have celiac disease, make him make his own gluten. Also, totally understand that sentiment. This is just a way that I show him that I love him. This is just a small thing that I can do for him. I can bake him some brownies and I know how to do that safely. So in my mind, why wouldn't I if he asks me for it or if I think he might enjoy brownies? So that's where I'm coming from when it comes to that. But I do want to acknowledge a lot of people with celiac likely won't be comfortable with that. That is totally valid. And if you know someone with celiac and you're like, why won't they touch gluten? Why won't they deal with gluten? Because every celiac has their own comfort level. And honestly, gluten just gives us the heebie-jeebies. So it makes sense if they want to avoid it. I totally respect it. It's just something that I mind, but also don't mind doing in different contexts. I'm definitely not going to touch gluten or deal with gluten if I'm overstimulated with ADHD, for example. This is Taylor Silverduke, registered dietitian specializing in celiac and fellow celiac of 10 plus years. If you found this video helpful or entertaining, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want more content from a celiac dietitian.